What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Deckin Around. My name is Tyler,
I'm Steve.
and today we are so excited. We have Reza Illusionist on the show. For anyone who doesn't know Reza, he is an absolutely phenomenal illusionist out of the Midwest who is crushing the scene these days. I have to say, I stumbled across his Instagram profile. I can't even remember how. I honestly immediately sent it to Steve, and I was like, dude, we got to have this guy on the show. His
Yeah.
absolute profile was sick. His shows were sick. Everything about it was just really exciting. So I've been looking forward to this one for a bit now. I know Steve's really excited about it. It's going to be a fun one, man.
Yeah, it is. And he does have a cool name, Reza.
Dude,
Pretty dope name.
you can't go wrong. I mean, honestly, it's always interesting too. I love to see kind of the persona that stage magicians really build out and where it goes with it, because I think, especially in the more modern time, there's a lot of people who go to like certain camps for inspiration, which obviously will come up throughout this whole kind of show, talking about the inspiration for a lot of the acts and a lot of the persona and everything. But I love seeing these kind of like interesting alternative kind of personas blow up in the scene of illusion and magic these days. It's always crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's cool to see. I mean, obviously, along the lines of what you're saying, it's just cool to see different magicians, illusionists, because I think when you hear the word magician, it's kind of in people's minds, it's like this is the box they fit in.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
So it's
it's very hard
cool.
to hear illusion or hear magician and not think about top hat and rabbit coming out of it, you know?
Yeah, no, dude, for sure. But it's cool, to obviously see, Reza, who is Reza the Illusionist. It's cool to see him do sleight of hand, see him do, different things like that, not just illusions or different things. So it's really cool. I'm excited.
It's gonna be a fun one. I know I'm pumped for it. Hopefully everyone out there is pumped for it. You ready to jump into it, Steve?
I am. Let's go.
Let's do it, man. Reza, what's good, man? How you doing?
What's going
Yeah.
on? Hey,
This is going to be a awesome episode. We're so excited to have you on tonight. Honestly, like I said earlier, I was scrolling through Instagram and literally stumbled across your profile, and I was like, first off, how have I not heard of this dude? Everything on this page is just like geared towards things that I think I would see. And I'm so glad I found it because, dude, your stage acts look awesome. I saw some of your performances. You are energetic. You're really hitting the scene hard, and you've really blown up. Like, how's that all felt for you? Really kind of going from, I'm assuming, a kid who enjoyed magic to where you're at now.
yeah, I mean, it's amazing. There's a huge process that goes before people ever know who you are, and mine started pretty young. I was a kid. I was like 6, 7 years old. Got a magic kit, and that story is, resonates with a lot of magicians. But then I kind of took a little bit of a different path because I'm from the Midwest, South Dakota specifically, and there wasn't a lot of inspiration in that area. Not a lot of mentorship, anything like that. So I ended up going to a place called Branson, Missouri, which was just driving distance from where I lived. And there's a bunch of magic shows at the time. Kirby
Interesting.
Van Birch was the big headliner. Had the Tigers, and so as a kid, I was just kind of infatuated, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. But then it was like, what's the process? You had the dream, but now how are you going to get there? So I started doing like opening acts for whoever would let me, open their show and be on stage, and then started going town to town, putting up posters and calling radio stations and newspapers and all that work. And there'd be like 50 people is all on the show, and I have to go back the next year, and then those 50 people would tell their friends, and there's 100, and then there's 150. But there's a whole
So
process.
cool.
So yeah, so now looking back and seeing all the hard work and how it's paid off, to a certain point now, and hopefully continues to do so. It's definitely a cool feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about it is like, especially starting so young and learning that process, right? And I mean, it's hard work. It's a lot easier than it used to be, right? Obviously, now we have social media. It's easier to get your name out there, but it's still freaking hard work. It's not easy. Your name's not going to blow
Yeah.
up tomorrow. It's like you said. You start with 50 people. The next year, maybe there's 100. Maybe there's 300. Maybe there's 600. Whatever. But it's just consistency and working hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different landscape now. I think it's good and bad.
Yeah.
You can, get famous in your living room now, which wasn't the case a decade ago. So
Yeah.
it's like, in a sense, it's easier, but then the saturation is there too. Where
Yeah.
if
Oh,
anyone
that's true.
can do that, you really have to work hard to break through that ceiling. So I think it's good and bad, but it's totally a different process for sure.
Yeah. What do you think has been the most difficult kind of, I guess, level to get past? You know, have you ever get to a plateau and you're just like, fuck, I wish I could break through this plateau, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. Like for a while, it seemed like television was the major aspiration.
Mm,
I wanted to get on uh, these TV shows and put magic into like reality shows, or I did Penn Fool Us and that kind of thing.
right.
But now it's TikTok, and
Mm,
a year from now it'll be something we haven't even heard of,
right.
and those are the scale in which your fame is how many followers you have, or different things. And so you have to be really adaptable and pivot. It's not easy. Like if you've built a huge following on Facebook, for example, and then you want to try and blow up on Instagram, you can't just pull those followers over. You
Right.
have to re-engage them and re-engage new people. So it's a fast world. But for Magic in particular, and the creativity behind Magic, I think it's a really cool platform to be able to reach millions and ultimately billions of people, now from your living room, where that wasn't possible when I was starting out.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's for sure. It's so funny because, Tyler's on the TikTok side of things. I stay away from it. Um, but it's interesting, these, the different demographics that, you have the people on Facebook who are totally different than the people who are on Instagram compared to the people on TikTok. And it's crazy with even the viewership on, certain videos and stuff like that. But you can see each platform pulling in. I mean, obviously Facebook is Instagram, right? But you could see certain aspects of all these different platforms kind of borrowing from each other, whether that's taking from TikTok and here comes, Reels. And then you have it go into Facebook. And it's just like, can we just have one program that does one app that does everything and
You can
just
you can
say,
tell what age group Steve falls into.
no, I totally get it, but it's just like, I mean, it's just like cameras, it's like, can't we just have one I get it. They need to keep like, but you get a camera, a brand new camera, and it's still missing that little thing that makes it perfect. And then they come out with the next camera. It has that thing, but it's missing something that the last thing had that was perfect. And they always want you to just keep going, which I understand it. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, we're not in control. That's the bottom line.
That's
There's
for
there's
sure.
up tops. Yeah, we have to fall in line. But yeah, I started taking a different path, and really pushing towards live shows.
Yeah.
Um, recently too. And so the difficult thing is to kind of have one foot in both.
Right.
To continue the social media presence while also developing the live tours and live shows and everything that goes into that. It's definitely a lot. Today is one of my, as I was sharing before we hit live, rare days off. Actually, we just came off of 104 days straight of
Wow.
live performances, with
Wow.
no days off in between. So 104, just bam, 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 every single day.
That's pretty
Dude,
Having to,
tiring. That's a
we're
that's a grind, man.
we're honored that you're here spending your day off with us.
Yeah, I would be sleeping right now. So, oh.
yeah, no, I'm happy to do this. It's cool. It's cool to have a conversation like this.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
now, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what really, you said you kind of aspired to the television side of things. What was that point in time for you where you realized like maybe live is the way to go? I like the live interaction better. I like the live vibe. When did you really realize that?
I mean, my whole career I did too, but it kind of goes hand in hand. I think that there's a perception, with magic in particular, but other art forms, that you have to be on television and you have to be in Vegas,
Yeah.
to really be at the top of your game.
Yeah.
And that's true in a lot of respects. But so I did some Vegas early on, and I realized that it wasn't necessarily where I wanted to live and spend all my time. I appreciate opportunities that I've had to perform in Vegas, but I like to tour. I like to be on the road. and
Mm.
the market is so isolated there. So I started kind of hubbing in the Midwest, and it allowed me to do my show here, but I could get to Chicago or Dallas or Denver or any of these places literally overnight. And so I travel mostly by tour bus. I do fly when I need to, but allows me to do that. And so I kind of recognize the live show thing as really being my calling. I love being in front of new audiences every night, and that instant gratification. You know, when you do television, it may not air for many months, and when it
Yeah.
does air, if I've performed a trick on that television show 6 months ago and it airs today, I've been performing that trick now for 6 more months. All
Right.
those shows, it's such a better trick now than it was then. And I look back, I'm like, oh, I didn't do that line that's so funny, or that moment, that little thing. Uh, where live shows, you can change it. If it's not working tonight, I'll review the footage. We film every single show, and I go, why didn't that work? And then
Right.
tomorrow, you know, it'll be improved, and so on. So I kind of like that instant gratification.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because it takes a special person to enjoy that tour life. You know, I've spent some time on the road touring, and it's not all it's cracked up to be. You know, touring on a bus. And I mean, obviously, if you're a headliner, you have the suite on a bus. You know, but sleeping in the coffins
Still,
is not. You know, it's definitely a lifestyle that you have to get used to. Whether it's not being able to poop on the bus and you're eating differently, and you know there's just so much that takes you out of your comfort zone,
yeah.
and so it definitely does take a special person to be able to do that and enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, it's like sometimes the harder things are, the more gratifying they are when they work
Yeah,
too. And so those days are hard, and those nights, and sleeping in different places all the time, and waking up and not knowing what city, let alone state you're in, all those
yeah,
things. But then you hit the stage that night, and if it's a good crowd, all of that is instantly worth it. And so
yeah,
it's kind of that yin and yang, that constant, you know, working hard and then having it pay off. But having that happen on a nightly basis, you know, I think really drives me and fuels me. So it's cool.
So,
that is
like you said too, today is your day off. How's that feel after 100 plus days on the road performing every single day? How's it feel to know that today, tonight, you can have it to yourself?
I mean, it's cool. I'm wired a little bit differently, so I would prefer to be on stage than not.
All right.
So I like it, but I think whether on that surface level it's healthy or not, I think deep down inside we all need to have that chance to recuperate and
yeah,
refresh. And so I think it's a necessary evil. But if I had my way, I'd be on stage every single night. I know a lot of performers probably feel the same way, but then there's probably ones that say, no, I need my time and my space. So right now I'm caught in between that a little bit, but I only have one day off. Right now we only have well, now we go to Mondays off. So every other day we do have a show. If you look at our schedule online, it's crazy. The biggest sacrifice in all that is we miss like all kind of personal events. If I have a friend
yeah.
that's getting married, I got to Skype it in, you know,
That's
Right.
tough.
or whatever it is, you know, family reunions, any of those things, even holidays, because we're working on most of those dates, and sometimes we're not even in the country, you know. So I think that's one of the bigger sacrifices. But yeah, it's like anything, you know, you have to make certain sacrifices to get there, and this is one that I'm willing to make, and I have a tremendous crew. Everyone on my team, they feel the same way. I've offered some of them like days off, and they say no, we want to do it. So I think it's cool to have all that passion and energy around me.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, though.
no, that's definitely. Now, how big is your crew? I mean, is it like lighting, sound? Is it everybody, or do the venues give you that stuff, or do you have like a traveling
Yeah,
production?
it's both. So I have a core team of 8 people,
Oh wow,
and they
that's a
all
lot.
have their own specialty. You know, technical director and stage manager, a road manager,
Yeah,
my tour bus driver. And so those people are ones that I rely on, and I'm really big on consistency. No matter where I am, I want everything to look and feel the same. And so that's where I have my core team to accomplish that. And then at every city, there's an additional about 8 people, and that's the basically the muscle
Yeah.
that under the direction of my team, we can come in at 8 or 9 in the morning and start unloading the trucks and trailers, having the production equipment go up into place and sound checks and lighting focus. And by about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we're ready to do our Q to Q and have dinner break, do the show. Show is over around 10 o'clock, and by midnight or 1, the trucks are loaded back up again with the help of that local crew, and we're on the road. So
Yep.
it's
And the
intense,
same
man.
thing the next day.
That's intense.
yeah, and then we do it again.
That's the one thing that sucks about being on the road is that when you go to a really cool city, and you always try to get at least a day off in that really cool city, right? But if you don't get
Yeah,
that day off, it's like you go there and you're like, oh, I've always wanted to come here, and then you get there and it's literally you don't have time. You basically get a lunch and a dinner. If you're lucky, you get a lunch outside venue and you get a dinner outside venue in that city
yeah,
where you can taste different foods. But for the most part, you're stuck in a venue. You walk
yeah.
around for like an hour and that's all you got.
And then people are like, "Hey, what do you think of wherever?" And you're like, "Well, the inside of the theater was amazing.
Yeah.
The dressing room was nice, but yeah,
They have good sushi at so and so, but that's about all I have.
yeah, yeah."
Oh, that's brutal.
Now,
And
do you
so,
have,
go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
I was just saying, do you have a specific food that you have to have at every location? Like when I was out, I had to have ramen and Indian food wherever we were.
Yeah, mine's probably a little bit weird, but our catering rider is sun butter
Oh wow.
and kombucha
Oh
All
nice.
right.
is like the core, and then hummus and those kind of things. Just
Yeah.
things that we enjoy, but are somewhat healthy, so we can kind of be good to our bodies.
Nice. That's key. That makes the road much more enjoyable, that's for sure.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
sure with such a tight schedule and such rough hours, healthy eating probably helps a lot there as well. You don't want to be living on Oreos and burritos like
Oh
I
Yeah.
do.
man, I don't know how many venues have pizza and they want to bring in pizza,
Dude,
and it's
pizza
just
would
like,
make me tired all the time. I had
bro,
pizza for lunch today. I needed a nap.
but
I
the
know.
hardest thing is like having to go to the bathroom at night. So you got to be careful with what you eat.
Exactly.
It's true though.
Oh my God, I love it. I absolutely love it. And so at this point, I'm guessing though, you're pretty comfortable with sleeping on a bus and always being kind of on the move. Have you ever thought about the idea of setting up like kind of a fixed venue at some point for you to have like your own kind of built out location that people would come to you instead?
I do. So I have that now, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
actually in Branson.
Okay.
Ironically, the same city that I would come to as a kid to do opening acts. I now have
That's
my
awesome.
residency. So I don't know if you've been here before, but it's basically right in the middle of the U.S.
All right.
And so it's within a 1-day driving distance. It works both ways. So for the tourism, it's a huge tourism market because people can come here very easily. But then for my tours, I can go places really easily. So it's really great both directions. But there's about 7 million tourists that come here
Wow.
every year, and I don't know all the exact uh, the facts about Branson, but I've heard that it has more theater seats than Broadway and more shows than Vegas. And um, there's all these accolades to Branson, but I don't know exactly what they are. But the bottom line is there's 7 million people that come here for live entertainment, and so we've been able to sell out shows consistently here, and then be able to,
Amazing.
like I said, go on the road. And so right now it's the best of both worlds. I came here basically when everything shut down during the pandemic, and Branson was the first place to open back up. I think our show opened June 5th, 2020.
Oh wow.
So in comparison, I think Vegas just started opening up like a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And so it was a whole year and change ahead of that. And there's mandates, for a while it was the distancing, and then had to wear masks and all that. But we kind of made it through that, and every show we added, it was sold out or near capacity. And
That's
so
awesome.
we're actually doing 270 residency shows in
Wow.
Branson this year alone.
Jeez.
So it's kind of like my little laboratory now, where because we do it on a nightly basis here, I'm able to introduce new illusions and tweak them and refine
cool.
them. And we would
Mm.
take them other places, have them be everything they can be, because I'm able to do it here first in kind of my own little environment. So
Right.
it's cool for that reason as well.
Yeah. Now, how long does it usually take you? I don't want to say take you, but how long do you usually take to work on a specific, act, illusion,
Yeah.
whatever, before you actually take it on the road or even present it to, your home crowd first?
Yeah. I would say 4 months on the low end.
Yeah.
And there's things I've been working on for multiple years, and I still don't feel that it's ready to go into the show.
Mm,
We've had dress rehearsal after dress rehearsal. I'm like, no, it's not right. Or there might be a safety concern because, like, Houdini or different, iconic illusionists, they'll do a stunt one time, and it can be pretty safe, and they're doing
right.
it one time. You know what I mean? Now, if we're doing it hundreds of times or thousands of times, we want it to be really, really safe.
Yeah.
And sometimes the things that you don't expect the safety issues on, just weird things you can kind of get injured. So I never want to miss a show. I've had some weird things happen in the past. The worst thing was I had a stage collapse on me in Acapulco,
Good
not on
Lord.
me,
Oh
but
wow.
under me, I guess. And I looked down, and the bone was visible in my leg for about that much of it.
Jeez,
Oh,
And
that's brutal.
yeah, and I had 40 shows, no days off from that point. And so I'd be in like a wheelchair. They like put fish hooks in it. I don't speak very good Spanish, and so I didn't even know like what the paramedics were saying. Like, are they gonna have to amputate or what? You're just like freaking out. You can't understand anything. And they put like fish. I think they pour a little tequila in it as well. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But bottom line, from that point forward, I'm like, okay, safety first. I don't want to be in this position again. So that's why we want to take a good amount of time to rehearse these things. But the development process, yeah, can be months or years for sure.
yeah. No, that's crazy. Now, do you have like a development team specifically that you work with that?
Yeah,
Um,
so I've got some people outside of that core 8 people that have different specialties. So like one was a creative consultant for like Copperfield and Madonna and
awesome.
Neil Diamond, and
That's
so
cool.
they have some great perspective in the world of like big concert production. My lighting designer did like Lady Gaga's show in Vegas, so he'll come in and he'll say, "Here's how we can, light this differently," and then I figure out how to make it deceptive, and they figure out how to add that wow factor. And so we kind of bounce things around between all of us until it gets good enough. But
Yeah.
I love that process because on your own, you just don't think of things. Or if I've come up with something myself, I've kind of labored over it, and I'm just like too close to the painting, so to speak, and I can't figure out like the ending or what this little thing's going to be that's going to make it different. And I explain to someone else, and then right away, because it's fresh in their eyes now, they come up with it. I'm like, man, why couldn't I think of that? So I mean, having a strong team is definitely important for sure. And yes, we've been very blessed there as well.
Yeah. I think that's great. I mean, I think a lot of people are so afraid to, I guess, bounce ideas off other people, and I think that's what makes people and their shows and performances great is because they are getting information from others, because even whatever, if you're a pathologist, if you're a cop, or whatever you are, you're pulling in ideas from other people because we all see things differently. I don't know how many times Tyler will come up with something, I'll show him and he'll be like, well, how about this, or blah, and I'll be like, dang, that's, yeah, I mean, makes it 10 times better. And it could be the littlest shift, especially with lights and music. Those definitely
Yeah,
create
or
something
timing.
special.
I draw
Yeah.
a lot of inspiration from comedians, and it's
Mm,
like, how can he say something that someone else could say the same exact words, but
yeah.
it's funny when this guy says it. And it's the smallest timing and nuances and just the look and whatever it is. And so I like dissecting all of that, and same with like the like music industry, like concerts. And I love how like an artist can just have a really big number where it's like every light in the whole building is going crazy and the audience is going crazy. Then they can go to the front of the stage and it's just them and a guitar, and they just tell a story about where the song came from, and instantly they're connecting with everybody. They don't need any of that stuff behind them anymore,
Yeah.
and it's as powerful of a moment as that big thing with $1 million of production behind them. And it's like, why is that? What's happening? And what's that connectivity? And try and take that and relate to the art form of magic is a challenge, but that's kind of what I try and do.
Yeah. No, it's like horror shows, horror movies, right? It's all like the music
Yeah,
is like 70% of the movie. Ever
those
try watching?
moments.
Ever try watching like horror movies without sound? It's
Yeah,
boring.
yeah, exactly. That's a great example.
It's funny.
And so you mentioned kind of obviously trying to fit a lot of things into how they play into magic comedy. What other kind of non-traditional genres do you kind of find inspiration from?
I mean, those are the main ones, but cinema as well. I mean, even rides at Disney, looking at all these little nuances that create the experience. And the
Yeah.
moment you walk in, they're already setting the tone for things. They're creating an emotion before you even get on that ride.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those would be the main ones that really try and hone in on and say, what are the ingredients? What's the secret sauce here?
It's so interesting to think, you mentioned Disney. I feel like every time I like open like a BuzzFeed article or like TikTok, I stumble across something talking about like different like colors that Disney uses to make you not look at things in all these different ways. And it's like it's crazy how much something where we go there and take for granted, it's really just like you said, setting that psychological tone and understanding how people are going to react to this or that, or like you said, even the slightest bit of timing. If you pause for 1 second here versus a second and a half, you're letting something sink in a little bit more and just click better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll unlock those things sometimes after doing a trick for many years, and I'll find that moment, and then from that point forward, it's become a whole new animal, a whole new trick. Yeah, and it's
Uh,
true of
yeah.
close up magic to big illusions to comedy magic to, I mean, obviously outside of magic as well, but um, that's, and I think one thing too that most performers don't do is watch themselves. I
Mm,
think it's hard for a lot of people. In sports, you review the game footage and so many other
yeah.
Yeah.
things, but magicians, especially ones that have an ego, which is like what, 95%? I don't know,
Yeah.
98%.
Maybe
I
more.
don't know. Yeah, I'll have to Google it later, but they'll go, the audience stood at the end. I got a standing ovation. So the show was worthy of a standing ovation, where in reality it's not. There was probably a couple moments and then the audience was being generous. But if you
Right.
go through there, there's so much that you can make better.
Yeah.
So, I film every single show and I don't obviously watch it all back, but I'll kind of make note of different moments where the reaction could have been better or was great. Most all the comedy in my show, and there's a lot of moments that's kind of more of a dry humor type thing, but I don't write a lot of the comedy. It just happens spontaneously. And then I'll figure out how can I make that happen again or make that moment, or if it does happen again, be prepared for it.
Mm,
And so that's kind of a lot of what I do is I go back and I try and re-engineer things.
yeah.
That's really cool.
I mean, I think that's smart. I think, it's kind of like musicians when they listen to their music again. They kind of see what hits, what doesn't, and it's comedians especially, right? Is have you ever had one thing that you thought was gonna be like a crusher and it just bombed?
Yeah, I'm sure there's tons. But I'll usually stay on it until it becomes something, different or better. I can't think of an exact moment, but I know that I've gone out there with a new trick and it falls flat. But after 2 months of doing it, it's my new favorite, you know,
Mm,
trick. It just takes getting out there in front of audiences, and you can do it all day long in front of the mirror, but when you put it out on stage, it's a different animal. So I do try and get it on stage as quickly as possible because that's where you really learn the fastest from it. But I don't know of one that necessarily bombed, but I'll think of it, and if it comes to mind, I'll kind of interject that.
yeah, you don't have to tell us which one it is. Just
Okay,
And,
yeah, let me
and
think
so
on
with
that.
so much, touring and your residency, I'm assuming you probably don't have much downtime. What do you find yourself doing other than today, obviously, in your time off? Is it just more of that creative process for you, or do you really try and unplug for the day and try and do things outside of that world to kind of give you a different perspective?
I try to unplug, um, for sure. Uh, I like getting outside. Basketball and tennis are like my two things. Like if I need a break, I'll go out and do an hour of sports or just
Nice.
working out or go for a jog or those kind of things. Yeah, that's me. I really like being outside, and for what I do, I don't get to do it for a lot of the days I'm stuck inside. So yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
What's your favorite city that you've been to? Other than
I
young,
would
obviously.
like Bermuda. So like Hamilton, Bermuda. Uh, Beautiful there. Have you guys been to
So I,
Bermuda?
I,
I have not been to Bermuda specifically, but I've wanted to go for a long time now.
Yeah,
haven't.
it's I mean there's a lot of places that I've been to that I'm like, man, this is, I like water and beaches and that kind of thing. Like this is beautiful, but we've had the opportunity to go back there several times, maybe times now. And any place that you go back, where you get to see people, hey, what's up? I remember, those are always cool moments.
That's really cool.
I like New York a lot as well, but I feel like that's just a common answer. So I'll
Not
give
for
that
me.
one, but I'll
Steve's from Boston, so he's not a fan of New York, so it happens.
oh, okay. So I'll veer off that path.
Uh,
No, hey, if you want to go down there, you can. I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah. Okay.
but so the touring aspect of that too, I mean, we've talked a little bit about you went to Mexico, obviously. Have you tried to do European tours yet or Asian tours or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, this when the pandemic happened, we were actually booked in Japan and China and UK and other places, and so all those got frozen. Before that, I did a bunch of international things, or at least a good handful, and I had logistical challenges every single time we'd get back, and my shipping container wouldn't arrive on time, of course, or things got uh, held up in customs, or they pulled some things off because they were props, but they thought that they were like a stolen something, and we get to a show and like, where's that, thing, when that thing's, a motorcycle or something you need for a show.
Oh, geez.
It's not super
Jeez.
convenient. So what I did in 2019 is I created two of every single element in my show, from the smallest props to the largest props, even the helicopter appearance I have two of, and the production items as well. So one can stay either in the States or at a residency, and the other can travel wherever that goes and always have a backup. And
Nice.
so I was so excited to have that totally completed. And then everything shut down. So we've had some more opportunities to go back overseas since that, but we've been now booked doing other things, so we haven't been able to take those. We're not supposed to be, but we had a great offer to go to Saudi Arabia
Oh, wow.
for 8 weeks, which has been really exciting. Actually, right now I would be there if it worked out. But I think things have to kind of come back a little bit, and we got to wait for logistics to catch up and all that. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of a waiting game. But I don't want to sit around and wait. So I was figuring out how to keep busy and doing what we do.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it's funny because right now, shipping containers are taking forever.
Yeah.
Dude, they're a lot more expensive than they used to be too, with everything
Yeah,
going on with it.
that's for
So
damn sure.
it sounds like you lucked out in that aspect, but like I said, hopefully after things return to normal, you get that opportunity again, because it sounds like an amazing chance to really see a lot of the world and experience other cultures and other reactions to things you've done and are comfortable with that may even help them evolve even more.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like we've done like a bunch of television in Japan, for example, and the kinds of comedy, it's much more slapstick.
Yeah.
At least the networks that we've been a part of, and so the way that they've changed things. Like I do a trick with like I don't know, some small objects, and they're like, no, it can't be that. It has to be a daikon radish. And do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what
That's
daikon is.
Well, I'd heard of it, but it's like I've never had a daikon radish before. But it's like, no, this is what you have to use. Or
It's too funny.
when we performed, I can't remember which country it was in, but I had a translator, and I did a joke that kills in the States, and it's I won't do the thing, so I'll butcher it right now. But the concept is, they think that I'm gonna get locked up in this box, but then it ends up being that I'm going to lock the person who's examining it from the audience into the box. And it's a funny moment when all that comes to realization and the lines and everything. Didn't work there.
Oh, man.
And I asked the translator, I'm like, how can that work better? He said, say you're going to lock their mother-in-law in the box. And I'm like, that's mildly funny, but it's not funnier than what I've written. I think mine's funnier. And he's like, just try it. And I mean, he's translating it, so really he can say whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
He's just being nice to repeat what I'm saying, but he said it killed. It was the biggest moment of the show. So yeah, there's definitely a need to have your finger on the pulse when you're performing for other demographics and figure out what works specifically for them.
That is too funny.
Translation can be a funny thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, you kind of mentioned growing up for you getting into magic, it was tough because there wasn't a lot of magic readily available necessarily for you, whether it be in the mentorship aspect or other aspects. How much of a part did like the internet and television play in kind of your education of magic once you had that interest?
Huge. I mean, I don't want to date myself too much, but I grew up watching The Masked Magician on TV to figure out how the tricks worked. And I would go build them in my garage after I watched the show.
Awesome.
So yeah, and now everyone's like, aren't you mad at that guy? Because now that there's been a resurgence of the show, I think it's on Netflix or something. And so people have been reintroduced to it now, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And they're like, aren't you upset? And I'm like, well, I can't be too upset because, you know, I remember what it's like. So yeah, I did that. YouTube tutorials and that kind of thing. I had a hard time learning from books, especially with like sleight of hand stuff and card magic, where there was elements involved that I had to translate what I was reading into what I was doing.
Yeah,
and
the diagrams. I don't know how anybody can follow those diagrams.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us that didn't have the luxury of learning the way that we learn now, could probably relate to that. And so I started writing letters to magicians and saying, would you spend 10 minutes with me after a show and show me these things? And I had a couple who were very generous.
That's cool.
With their time, and they brought me back and changed my life by doing that.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Now, do you have people that have asked you to do that? Do you do the same thing, or?
Yeah. So after the show, I actually do a backstage kind of meet and greet experience. And for those that are serious about magic, or they have kids that they feel have a higher interest level than most, they'll bring them backstage. And part of this experience is get to hang out and they get to see like some props up close and the tour bus and meet the crew. And I spend about 15 minutes with them, showing them magic and kind of learning where they're at and trying to help them in their career. So basically passing the torch from what someone did for me and now giving that to somebody else. But now I'm offering it to them, so they don't have to go to the work of writing a letter and you know, seeking me out. I want to further their careers and do all that. And then there's been a couple of those guys that have ended up having successful careers. I'll get my Google alerts, you know, and I'll be like, oh, there's an article on me. No, it's not on me. It's on some, you know, 17-year-old kid that's headlined this theater that's telling them how they got interested in magic on my stage. So it's cool.
That's really cool. Plus, I don't think kids these days know. Yeah, they don't know how to send letters these days. I don't think they've ever bought stamps. So.
No, I feel like I'm really aging myself on this interview, but it's.
Dude, you're fine. You're fine. You're the youngest person on here by a decade at least, so you're good.
Yeah, I'm probably old enough to be your dad. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll keep going down this path then.
Yeah, no, dude, it's good because you know what? If nothing else, all these people are going to be out there being like, how do I write a letter? Who do I write letters to? How do I find an
address?
What's
a letter?
Email? You mean email?
Yeah.
I love that.
Just trying to give you these honest answers, and yeah.
No, we appreciate it. It's interesting to see how like so many different people get into it too, because I think like in this day and age, so many kids are exposed to magic through social media and through TikTok and YouTube that like waiting to the following week to watch a TV episode to come on to see more tricks revealed was probably like antagonizing, like and you know, terrible back then.
Yeah, and there's a thing called TV Magic Guide that would say like any reference of any magic show, anything on television for that week. I actually just found a bunch of my old tapes that I would tape all those shows and watch them over and over and over again.
That's too
So yeah,
funny.
and that's how you learn. But so now the society has changed. You have to adapt to that, and so you kind of leave all that behind and now try to become one of the kids, which is, you know, a weird thing too. But yeah.
Do you ever see yourself do or wanting to do kind of like a Netflix show or?
Yeah, it's definitely a desire of mine. And we've gone down that path with different production companies. We've presented some pilots out there. I keep getting these cameos and shows, and I haven't had my own series, which is, again, a huge desire. But right now we're working with some producers that I feel have the ability to do that. And the
Cool.
product that we're presenting has a different spin on it. So hopefully a year from now, we'll be having a conversation about that.
Awesome. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
So out of all the, and you know, you mentioned you've had a lot of cameos. Out of all the cameos you've done, which was your kind of either most exciting or your favorite that you've done so far?
Well, one that took me by surprise was Late Night with Carson Daly. They were showing a video that of a trick that I had done, and I had no idea that they were showing that. And so I was just watching, and as they were leading up to it, I'm like, that sounds like the thing I did. And then they, there I am on the screen, which is cool. But I mean, it's probably a cliche answer, but well, around this area, Duck Dynasty is a huge show.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
so,
huge anywhere, isn't it?
I mean, that show really, like, I feel like it swept the nation, and you're like,
Yeah,
okay,
it
who
was
would have thought?
huge.
yeah, they had, I think, 11 seasons, and it still airs all over the place on like 3
Crazy.
different networks. And so I'll see that re-airing the stuff that I did for that. But I was on the last season there. But that's the one that people always come up to me and they're like, so how's Uncle Si? Or, you know, like they want to know that, like, are these guys really what they seem to be in real life? Because I was like one of the only people on the show that wasn't a bearded, you know, person,
Yeah.
part
of the family. So I was like the outsider is kind of how they played me on the show. So people were always like, so what's it really like? But yeah.
That's
I don't know
funny.
anything about that show. That's the funny thing.
I've
never
watched,
seen
like,
that
most
show.
of the. I think I watched everything but the last 2 seasons, which is like that
Yeah.
show is like crazy, and that's not even like I'm not into hunting. That's not my thing. Like I don't know what it is about that show. They're magnetic, man.
Yeah, the characters, they draw you in. Yeah.
They really do, and it was
Yeah.
it was impressive, I have to say.
That was
But
huge. That show was huge.
yeah, and that must have been like an interesting experience too, because it's a non-traditional kind of appearance on television. You know, it's not like the show was about magic, or magic was really a huge underlying theme, or even a
Yeah.
small theme for a lot of it. So how did that kind of process go? Did they approach you about it? Was it something where you saw an opportunity and reached out to them, or how did all that work out?
No, they had reached out to me, the writers who they sit in LA,
Right.
like the LA, and they write for people in Louisiana, the other LA. 2 totally different cultures.
Yeah,
And
So funny.
big time.
yeah, and so the storyline that they were wanting to present is that Jep, who's one of the Robertson guys, wants to learn magic to perform it at his son's birthday party, but doesn't know how to perform magic. So then they bring me in as his kind of consultant, and friendship and this kind of plays into it. And then the other guys are trying to learn magic along with him, and of course can't do it. And they feel like, okay, this is a funny plot, this is a funny storyline. But when they called me, they're like, okay, so the first trick we want you to do is make a tree disappear from their backyard, because there was a tree that had fallen over, and that was something that was tied to some other storyline. And you know, they didn't understand the parameters of magic. And of course on TV you can do anything,
Yeah.
as we've seen. I won't go into that. But you
I mean,
still
we should go into that.
no. Part 2.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be legitimate. So, I'm like, well, we could do it, but really, like, you're talking about a very difficult piece of magic to make, outdoors, a tree disappear and have it be authentic magic.
Right.
And so then we started designing other things for the show, and I did about, I don't know, 8 or 9 different illusions that I created and intertwined into the script, and a lot of them ended up getting cut out. And I realized, after watching that, it takes a magic eye to know how to shoot magic,
Yeah.
and even when I came in and kind of gave the direction, here's how this one needs to be, the angle that needs to be viewed, and here are the cut points to make sure that everything is seamless and all that. It's a different animal, and you can't just go into it with a cinematic background and television background. So there's a lot of challenges that we had on that show, getting the magic to play correctly. But I did, my goal, I did get everything authentic magic, so all the reactions are real and all that.
That's
which
cool.
Something to be said about that, hopefully. But
Yeah, no, that's huge.
yeah,
We
Especially
definitely
on a
know that
yeah.
cinematography wise,
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg knows that it definitely matters what angle the trick is being shot at.
Dude, I just remember people making like elephants and space shuttles disappear on television. So yeah, anything can happen on television. A lot of it's still magic, but a lot of it's also the camera playing into it. And kind of along that same vein, like you said, you like the live aspect of television. When this whole pandemic hit, what was kind of your first like reaction? Did you consider jumping into that whole like online Zoom magic aspect of things? Did you think about the TikTok world?
I didn't. No, I'm like one of the few that didn't do that, and it was because our show here opened up pretty much right away. So I
Okay.
spent I think it was 3 months of downtime designing how to refresh the show with new illusions, and then once it reopened, I never had the time or ability to even pivot. So I did like a couple, like I think I did a couple like talk shows and stuff where I did a remote appearance, but I never, to this day, I've never done a Zoom show.
Nice.
I don't know
Probably
if
for
that's
the
nice or
best.
not.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think
I think when it comes to, I think, and obviously this doesn't mean anything, but I think for people that have resorted to Zoom, maybe they felt like they should do that just so they could keep doing magic because they love doing it, or have to because they have to pay bills, or whatever reason, but I'm sure most of them, or a good amount of them, or whatever, would rather do what they normally do, whether it's on stage or at parties or events or whatever it may be. I think if they had the opportunity to do that, so I think some people who did go that Zoom route kind of had to, you know?
Yeah, it's probably both. I mean, there's probably people that were relieved because they're more comfortable
Yeah,
in front of a camera than a live audience, and then
yeah,
some people who saw it as a handicap. But either way, I think there's a tremendous amount of development that has to go into that to make magic play and figure out how selections are going to be made when someone can't reach through a screen and make them. So
Yeah.
I
Keeping
really
them
admire
fair, yeah.
the shows that I've seen. I think that it's a much, in my opinion, much more difficult form, and anyone who's done it and done it successfully, I think, deserves a lot of accolade.
yeah. I mean, it's a whole new routine. You got to learn the angles differently. The angles are totally different. The delivery is totally different. It's a whole different venue, a type
Yeah.
of magic. It's a new skill, it's a good skill to have.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think especially in that like venue of or that like vein of like corporate magicians, it's a whole new like revenue stream there that may even continue because now you can have a magician who's based out of California performing for a corporate event in New York without
Yeah.
having to fly him out there, and a company's gonna be like, hey, cool, we can post you up on the big screen and Skype it out for a room of 100 people without having to pay for your airfare or worry about how
And
you're gonna
hotel.
get here. Exactly. Like so, there's so much like added benefit there, and I think looking at it too, I'm sure for you doing shows every night and being very driven to be busy all the time, if you could figure out how to do 3 shows in a night, you'd probably be pushing yourself to go there. With Zoom, it's like, hey, you can do 10 shows
True.
back to back to back if you really want.
Yeah, in your pajama bottoms.
Exactly.
Just don't stand up.
Right.
I love it.
Those horror shows. You got to be careful of those horror shows.
But so it's good that the pandemic didn't really hit you in a really meaningful way. Were you worried about it in that beginning period though? Like, I mean, obviously with all the uncertainty, were you kind of like, all right, what do I do if this continues beyond that short period of time?
Yeah, I went through the same range of emotions that everybody else went into. Um, I don't remember the order of them, but I know it was like shock and then disbelief. And then uh, I think if you're planning a vacation and you know, hey, in January, we're taking a month off and you're kind of having your head looking forward to it, but just to have the rug pulled from underneath you like that.
Mm.
And we shut down where we found out, I can't remember the exact line of events, but we were still going, and then all of a sudden we had a show one day and then it was canceled the next day. That's how it was.
Yeah.
So I went through those emotions, and then I think I started getting a lot of anxiety and like this crippling fear kind of thing, and I had to rechannel that. So I started doing that into like a creative process. But there's a point at which you have to go. There's things that are in our control, and there's things that are outside of our control. And what's in our control during all that, and it's we still have the ability to be creative.
Yeah.
And that's what I started doing. I started getting my notebooks out, and just from home, it's like, what can I do at this time? And now I've got a couple pieces in the show that are incredible pieces that we've never had the chance to come up with to introduce had it not been for that focused time.
Yeah.
And so
Now,
silver
how,
linings.
I mean, that's a tough kind of avenue to navigate, anxiety and stress, and, especially something that's so new and unexpected, and everybody deals with, those things differently. Um, how did you feel? Obviously you said you took the time to sit down and create, write more stuff or just kind of create ideas. Did you have any other methods to kind of help you get through that anxiety or?
Yeah, I needed to have that connectivity with the audiences, even if it wasn't live. And so I started making videos, like Q&A types of videos, or ask me about um, things that interest you. And so I started making these little 2 or 3 minute, can't remember exactly what they were, but people would ask like, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you on stage? And
Oh,
so I'd go back and I'd pull footage from something insane that happened, and I would, create these little snippets and talk over them. So I think it was cool. It was also therapeutic for me to go through that process and have
mm,
something, an outlet to do, having to go find that footage and create these little videos. I spent, a good amount of time on it, but I think it was a healthy process for me to drive my energy into something and create it and put it out, and then get that response back and people, messaging in and having something where we can, have that back and forth is what I've really based a lot of my career on, is not only the connectivity but the relatability of these different things. Not to veer off, but some of the props that I use, they're or not some but all. I try and make them things that are relatable, and
mm,
objects that are in people's houses and doing magic with those, rather than all these cliche things where this magician has a samurai sword and then it goes into or whatever, and the audiences don't relate to that. So that's kind of the approach I took. Is I was like, give me challenges, give me an object. What kind of magic do you want to see with this object? And I create a thing called everyday objects
mm.
during that time, where people just suggest random objects and I do magic with them. And now was a staple in my show then for a while after that.
That's cool.
So
Yeah,
yeah, things like that.
nice. That's fun. Hello, mom. I got to say hi to my mom. My
Hi,
mom's in the
Janice.
chat. Now,
So
okay, you got.
I was gonna say, so you mentioned you're kind of looking for an opportunity in the television series you're kind of working on and building out pilots for your own kind of television series. Are there other magicians in your space that you would want to do either some sort of collab with, whether it be a live show or a television series?
Ooh, other magicians.
Good question.
Um, yeah.
Or other illusionists.
Oh man. Um, Let me think on that for a second. Next
And
question.
and
I'll
if you
come back
say
to it.
no, it's not an insult to any of the great
Right.
magicians or illusionists out there. It's just some people love to be a solo act, and that's fine.
Well, I did this show called Revolutionist for a while, and Brett Daniels was the producer of it, and he was the co-creator of the Illusionist show on Broadway, which took off and had a very successful touring career. And so he called me and said, I want to put together this kind of sister show called Revolutionist. And he had, it was me and Jeff McBride and Kevin James and a few other performers in the artwork that he pitched. He actually pitched the show without me knowing it. He got a photo of mine off the internet, and he put me at the focal point around people I respected,
Nice.
and he sold the show. And then he called me and said, "Hey, I sold the show, and they want you in it, and you're going to be the rock star of this show."
That's
And so
funny.
I did that, and it was a really fun experience, but it was one that was just for that period of my life. I wouldn't go back and do it again. Just the different dynamics of working with that, and the departure of having to leave your own identity and your own brand to fit into a bigger, artistic expression of what that show was. But during that time, Chris Angel called and said, "Hey, come to Vegas. Let's talk about doing something similar," because he had a show called Supernaturalists.
Yeah.
And so I went out there and I hung with Chris for a few days, and some other magicians that he had kind of selected that he wanted to be involved with this project. And so I've gone through that process, and I've come out the other side realizing that I really like doing my own thing. So
It's understandable.
so I've been there, and now I don't want to go back.
That makes
That
sense.
makes
though.
But I
makes
have
total
only
sense.
great things to say about everyone that I've worked with, including Chris, and there was nothing negative about that. But I think just the way my process of how I create and how I present things on stage, I like to have the creative control.
Yeah.
And when you put a bunch of magicians on one stage together and having the transitions between them, it definitely lends itself to being messy, or you find that some overshadow others, and then there's ego issues and all that. Not to say that it couldn't be done. It's been done very successfully by several shows, but for me, it's just not my thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's
Respectfully.
understandable. It's definitely, I think personalities and performance are two different things too, People, I think once they're, you get in a room with a bunch of magicians and you can have a great time. And then all of a sudden, once professionalism and, performance comes in hand, and that's when things could change.
As crazy as it probably sounds, or it may not, I have actually only been to one magic convention in my entire life.
Yeah. And
Wasn't-
what's
wasn't
your
your,
opinion?
Yeah.
I'm glad that I went. I had a great time. I haven't gone to one since.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I stay in my own lane, and I've worked really kind of underground in the magic industry as well. Like I just don't put out products in the magic world, and I don't do a lot of podcasts. This one's fun, it's cool, but it's not really my main focus as far as getting in front of other magicians. I've had some bad experiences, with other people who pretend to be your friend and take your material, or
We've heard
ask
a lot
for
of
your
that.
help and all that. And I don't want to say that every magician is like that, but I've just had enough negative experiences that's kind of changed my outlook a little bit, jaded me possibly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we've heard that many, many times about the industry. People that you think are your friends steal your shit and they claim it for themselves, or they do something that undermines what you're doing, or they're just not who you thought they were.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. But
And it seems like you've built a good team around you, though, who you can bounce ideas off of and be creative with without them having to be necessarily in the magic world as well, which, I think that's the key with it a lot of times, too, is many magicians think that the best person to collaborate with or to bounce ideas off is another magician. And sometimes that
Right.
is the case, but it doesn't always need to be the case.
right.
Anyone can have an opinion on something. And honestly, sometimes having, I hate to use the word lay people for like people who
Yeah.
aren't into magic, but like having a layperson give you feedback is probably even more valuable sometimes, because if you're performing to lay people and they don't understand something you're trying to get across, something that's maybe a little too subtle, they're going to be a better indicator than a magician who may naturally get something because they understand what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like a significant other or your mother.
So yeah, those are two people
They're
I
the
feel like
ones
are
that are
quickly
gonna be
going to,
like,
yeah,
that sucks. Keep going.
Yeah, you want honesty for
Yeah.
sure.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
when I ask the audiences after the show, I try and get their feedback. You have to word things a certain way. Like if you say, "What was your least favorite trick in the show?" No one has the balls to tell you that. They would
Yeah.
never say they don't like a trick.
yeah,
But what I say is, we have a brand new illusion we're putting in the show, and we're really excited about it. One trick has to come out in order to make room for it. What are your ideas?
Ooh,
Which
that's
one
smart.
should it be? You know, and work things that way. Because if you get the honest opinion of a layperson, I think it's extremely valuable. But it's just how you get that to where it really is honest feedback.
Yeah.
yeah. And it may not be that they didn't like it necessarily, but it's the one that had the least wow factor for them or whatever it is, and they feel less like they're shitting on your work and more so like they're
Yeah.
giving you constructive feedback. You know, I mean, that's a great approach to it too, and I think that's part of being a performer is understanding the not only the psychology of the audience while you're on stage and performing, but also how to elicit that feedback.
Yeah, I remember backstage at a meet and greet with David Copperfield when I was a kid, or at least younger, and he was asking me. He just put the car illusion in the show,
Yeah,
the license plate thing, and he was asking my opinion. This is before I had any accolades in the magic world. I was just a kid, and he was asking me, and I thought later back at that, you know, how interesting that was that he turned to me, but you know, through a kid's perspective, you get true, honest
Yeah.
feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have smelly breath, man, the kid's gonna tell you.
Yeah.
The minute you get older and it turns into adults, you get mad when someone tells you you got smelly
yeah.
breath.
Yeah.
We worry about hurting people's feelings, and sometimes it's not
Yeah.
about hurting feelings, but it's about giving feedback that may in the moment hurt their feelings, but down the road is going to benefit them. So
That's
Constructive criticism.
yeah, man,
yeah.
that's
And
what
that's
it's
what
all
like what
about.
Tyler talks about all the time is the yay sayers,
Yeah,
It's like your followers that are always like yes men, like, oh
Yeah.
yes, that's great, yes, that's great, yes. You don't learn from them. You learn from the people that are kind of giving you that constructive criticism, that don't agree with everything that you're doing, that says this one is the one we would leave out because it just didn't perform as well.
Yeah. And who are the ones watching your videos or buying your tickets? They're the ones that should have the loudest voice,
yeah,
Yeah.
not some washed up magician that is jealous of what you're doing in the first place, you know,
yeah,
or whoever.
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the funny thing though, a lot of times too, and that's a tough part. And I'm sure as a performer, that must have been tough in the beginning for you to kind of filter out the negative feedback that was more because people were jealous or didn't like what you were doing versus the constructive feedback that actually would help you grow.
Exactly. Yeah. I did this show for a fundraiser when I was um, growing up back in South Dakota before I left there. And there were some older magicians that never made it. They weren't has-beens. They were never was. And one of them actually sabotaged one of my tricks, like pulled the Velcro off of the thing,
That's
and
crazy.
made my girls cry. My assistants before the show made them feel, you know, I don't what he said, but inferior, and to go out on stage like that, just because, you know, I was a young kid that was doing illusions, and he never got a chance to. So, again, not to dog the magic world, but hopefully, you know, just make people question uh, why they would say those things and do those things and put more positivity out. You know,
Yeah.
music, for example, if like you know how to play guitar and someone's like, "Oh, I want to play guitar," you'll sit down, you'll show them those chords. Magic maybe it's getting more like that. I think with some of the cardistry things, I think there's more of that collaborative effort. But
Yeah.
in the older style magic or stage magic, people like build these walls and are guarded, and so it would be really cool to see the magic industry become more like the music industry in that way, at least.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. I think it's just like anything. Once you have the more people collaborating in their mind, it's like, okay, well, who's going to take the lead, right? Who's the headliner?
Yeah.
Who's the person that made this happen? There always needs to be a leader in people's minds.
Yeah.
That hierarchy. And I always looked at it like this. The people that teach their tricks, because or not necessarily tricks, just anything, who teach their methods, let's say. The person who teaches their methods the way they do it, because they want people to learn and better themselves, aren't afraid of them stealing it, because you can't replicate that the way that person does it, right? Everybody's going to do it differently. Yes, you can do the same trick, but the delivery is not going to be the same.
Right.
You know? And you could look at, let's take Shin Lim's Dream Act, right?
Steve just likes bringing up this whole controversy.
No, I'm just saying it just fit perfectly. But like, let's take his Dream Act. Yes, he created this and he performed it the way he performed it. And then you have some other dude who comes on and does AGT in another country and pretty much uses his Dream Act. He's not literally the next Shin Lim. You know what I mean? So it definitely matters the type of teacher you are, the type of person you are, and the creator that you are. It's I think it's definitely says something about you if you're willing to give up your secrets. And I'm not saying all of them, obviously, but giving up those methods where you can help people grow and better the environment that you're in, because you know that that's going to help rather than take away from yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Thank you. I say cool things every once in a great while. I think this is what, episode 79, 80?
Yeah.
That's probably the second or third cool thing.
I was going to be generous. I was going to say 8 or 9, but damn,
Okay,
all right,
cool.
Steve.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Knock yourself a little bit there. But so, and actually, so in the same vein there, Steve mentioned AGT. Have you had any aspirations to get on something like AGT where it's, I think Penn and Teller fool us as much as it's a competition show in a sense. You're competing against Penn and Teller to an extent. Have you had that kind of desire to be in a competitive environment like AGT where you're competing against other performers?
No, I haven't. But I think AGT has changed a lot. If you go back a number of years when I was seriously considering the show and they were coming after us to be a part of it, it was different. They were very critical to some acts, and it was all just about what they thought would make the best TV. There was some talented acts that they just picked apart. I think that there was some Illusionists specifically that took a dive on that show. I can't remember exactly who they were. But now it's all, they're very complimentary. They've actually followed the lead of Penn and Teller Fool Us, to where if there's something negative to say, they'll start by saying something positive, and the takeaway from that would be something positive. That's what I've at least seen more recent years. But just because in those competition shows, you give up essentially all of your creative control. Not creative, I'm sorry, all your control, where they can make you look however you want or however they want. And if something goes wrong, you may not have the opportunity to go back and fix it. I just figured that wasn't necessarily for me, but I've got some really close friends who have done very well in the show, and I think it's a good fit for them. But for me in particular, I just thought it wasn't. They started calling me pretty early on, and at the very beginning, there may have been an opportunity to do it, like when Dan Sperry was on. You remember that? I think that was great television, and what he did with it, I think, was fantastic. But then other performers, they kind of capitalized on things going wrong for them, and I just had a hard time looking at it the same way after that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who I was talking. I don't think it was Tyler, but I was talking about this with someone the other day about AGT, and you could just see. I mean, it's definitely entertainment value. The person who wins is not the person who should win in most people's eyes. They create this big, I guess, emotional roller coaster, and if you have a sob story, you're at the top of the list. If if they need a specific type of performer for their show in Vegas, maybe that's who wins. So I think it's definitely constructed differently than it used to be. But it's so interesting watching those shows and seeing the comments that they say for certain acts, or for most acts, let's say. So it's definitely not reality TV, let's be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of those competitive shows, like you said, the control is more so what's going to get the best ratings versus what's an actual representation of the competitive spirit of it. But I think also one of the great things about it is it's getting Magic more into the mainstream now too. You know, we've talked to so many people over the past, year or so where it's like growing up as a kid, Magic wasn't like cool. Like you were like not necessarily ostracized because you were into magic, but like you surely weren't the most popular kid in school usually for doing magic tricks. And that whole kind of dynamic seems to be finally shifting because of the fact that magic is on television now and magic is so big in all these platforms. It's a shame that there still is a lot of editorial control around what it's perceived as and what actually gets on air. But ultimately, I think there's a shining light if you look at the big picture.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think magic is cool again. Magic is diverse. A lot of the magicians that you see right now, they have their own identity, like Shim Lim, different than anyone who's been presented on TV before that, where previous to that, it may be like you're compared to one person all the time.
Yeah.
Whoever that is. Now you could be a fan of Justin Willmans. You can be a fan of Shin Lin's. You can be a fan of, a number of these guys, like Justin Flom and what they're doing on the viral videos. And, there's just so much diversity and so much out there that I think it's very healthy for Magic.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Yeah, and it's good to have different people you watch rather than the same two people that are constantly on TV, and that's all you can kind of consider Magic,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what a year from now, 5 years and 10 years from now looks like.
Yeah. Someone said in the chat, Jackie Yu.
Yeah,
he's definitely a different character.
Yeah, his whole persona is much different than what you would expect from like Magic. That seriousness of Magic.
Yeah, so funny. Oh, Jackie.
Well, as always, we like to throw out just see if anyone has any questions in the audience as we kind of wind things down a little bit here. I gotta say, Reza, it's been really interesting talking to you. I feel like we stayed much more on topic this time than we have in the past. But there was just so much interesting information. I mean, I think for anyone who's going to Branson or anywhere near one of your tour spots, I'd highly recommend checking out a performance. Links are down in the description below so you can find all of his tour dates and everything. But like, I really think that the whole way you approach Magic and obviously the energy and passion you put into it is really what makes it so great. You can be I don't want to say you can be a great performer and not enjoy it. I think to be a great performer, you honestly have to enjoy it. And you convey that in a way that is approachable, but also, you show your passion for Magic and your passion for creation. And it's very admirable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
Yeah. I actually have a question. Tyler's going to laugh at this one.
Right.
Where on earth can I get some of that toilet paper you used on Fool Us?
Oh,
that's the best toilet paper ever.
So when I first got approached to do that show, I want to do a trick that I invented with spray paint and the paper, and it was really for one joke. And so I unravel that big thing and say giant piece of toilet paper, custom made for Kim Kardashian. And it's one of my favorite moments in the show.
It's so good.
Just to catch the audience off guard, whatever. So then they said, no, we don't want the spray paint trick. We want this card trick that we saw you do. And I said, oh, okay, fine. But I still want to do that joke on the show. So I combined the card trick with the spray paint thing just so I can get that one joke. And it made it through the scripting process and the rehearsals and the filming, and the producers loved it. The audience loved it. And then the network cut it.
No.
So the network cut the joke out, but left everything else.
Yeah.
So it went something like this big piece of toilet paper.
Yeah, that's
into like nothing that made any correlation or any sense from there. And I went to so much work. Like the producers called like the night before, and they're like, we put the dots on the paper to make it look like toilet paper. They're like, those are peeling off, the humidity back there. So I was like running to Donnie Marie, like Marie's daughter, is a friend of mine. So they were nice enough. They opened their scene shop up for me. Got some supplies out of Donnie Marie's studio and
Nice.
went and like reapplied these new lines. And I went to all this work just for this Kim Kardashian joke. I don't even know why.
And
And they totally spliced it from the show. So that's the
Oh, man.
backstory. That's why it made no sense whatsoever.
That's
Dude,
brutal.
I just loved it. I thought it was funny, even though I didn't know that part. Like, I thought it
It's
was
actually even
great.
funnier now that I know. That would have been
Yeah.
epic. But
Oh,
yeah,
dude, yeah, it's.
I was
crazy.
like way out on a limb.
dude.
It's so
one month.
crazy what gets by and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, why would they like? Do they not want to pick a fight with her? Like, I don't understand. Like,
I'll tell you something else that's absolutely insane about that show. I don't think it's something that I shouldn't say. But another friend of mine, name is Mike Bliss.
Mhm.
He did the show, and they got two girls out of the audience. You can look up his episode. He did a rope tie thing with two girls, but they were wearing like pretty short shorts, which again made it past anybody who was in the building as far as yes, go ahead. But then got to the network and they thought it was too revealing. This is gonna sound insane. They edited pants on these two girls.
what?
Every
I'm
time you
looking right
saw
now.
a wide
They're in like
shot,
jeans and like one of them's in leggings.
they
What?
they CGI'd pants
No.
on these girls. I'm not
Oh, my
even
God.
joking with you. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. I would never believe if I didn't. But yeah.
I do have to say they did a pretty good job with the CGI though.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it right now. Like,
Yeah.
they look like real pants, so they did
Oh,
a good job. But that's
absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure some intern was like, well, we could just do this. And then they're like, that would never work. And he's like, give me 5 minutes. And then they're like, well, that's not actually that bad.
Wow,
Yeah.
he did do a good job.
Yeah,
And there's
dude, that
only a
is
few
too funny.
spots where it's a wide shot. You know, most of it is, you know, a tighter shot, so you can't see it anyway. But I thought that was insane.
That's crazy. It's that just shows you what they could do with video
That is too funny.
and what they're willing to do, not what
they're
they
willing
can
to do. Yeah, I mean, we
what
know
they're
they
willing
can
to
do it. Yeah.
That's just crazy.
That really is like, and I don't know, like, oh no, shorts versus pants. Like, how short could they have possibly been? You know?
I mean, dude, they could probably be pretty.
Yeah, they
short.
probably could have been really short, but I'm sure no one's going to sit in an audience. Here's the thing, like, I doubt anyone's going to sit in like a studio audience in like shorts that are going to be uncomfortable sitting down for a prolonged period of time. You know?
Yeah,
Bro, it's all
it
about
wasn't
looking
terrible.
cute, man. It's all about looking cute. If you look cute, you go through whatever it takes to look cute, man.
I guess I don't know. That's I'm wearing like a Ninja Turtles t-shirt right now, so I can't even talk. But damn, dude, that's CGI pants. Mind blown. I think
Yeah.
that's the real magic of Penn and Teller right there.
Here's
Yeah,
the problem
and
with that.
Penn and Teller, it shoots in one take, so they don't give you an opportunity to reshoot, you know, like
Yeah.
other shows. Or they'll shoot the dress rehearsal in some shows so they could have something to splice to if they need to. But Fool Us, you just get one take. They shoot, you might notice already, but for like 5 extra acts every season.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so if there's a reason why something can't air, something goes wrong, whatever, they just don't air that act and they just air one of the ones, you know, on the shelf. And so the fact, knowing that now, that they decided to still CGI pants on that rather than just pulling, I don't know.
It's
mean-
funny because we had ECAT on, and she kind of told us about her
Yeah, her
fiasco, let's
catastrophe
say.
with hers and how they like
Her
shot like 10
fiasco
minutes
on the show. But when you
because
watch
of that whole like, yeah, it looks they did a good job editing there too. They didn't have to
Yeah.
edit pants. I'm still blown away by the pants thing, dude.
isn't that
Like,
crazy?
yeah.
Yeah, if
That's-
you watch if you watch ECAT's, I guess episode, I guess you could say.
Yeah, what happened in a
It,
nutshell?
yeah, it didn't go like there was
They
a big snafu.
Allison Hannigan was holding a balloon and there was a prediction tied to the balloon and she accidentally
Like,
like
no,
let go and they had to like chase down the balloon
the
across the
balloon up to
stage.
the-
Yeah, for like 5 minutes. So there's like a 5-minute block where they just cut out. And they did a
Okay.
really clean job of the edit. It wasn't anything like catastrophic, but it was like the whole premise
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, they'll
oh,
give you edit points.
yeah,
But you have to be enough of a seasoned performer to think through that
Yeah.
and to have the continuity for the
Yeah.
editors. I actually had that happen when I was filming too. It was a simple riffle, and I don't know why. It didn't go well and it was sloppy. And so I said, all right, edit point for the producers, and then I just made sure everything was in the same spot, and then they can take it wide and do that. But if you
Yeah.
don't know what you're doing, or if something goes wrong, that you can't quickly I mean, a balloon to go chase it down, I guess you could do that, but
Right.
if it's a
It's not
prop
fun.
where it's a one-time use prop and you blow it, they're not going to wait around typically
Right.
to redo it. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but every moment or every minute is a huge amount of money on a film set for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
especially
no
on
doubt about
something like
that.
that. That's crazy. It's just, I mean, pants. I just can't.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's crazy.
I hope I can talk about that. I hope I don't get a
Talk
call
about
tomorrow.
what? We didn't hear anything.
You'll be perfectly fine. No worries there. It's honestly, anyone we've had on who's talked about Fool Us has told us so much like behind the scenes stuff live, whether it be like the input from the creative team there and how much control they have and what they're willing to do to help and all these kind of things. So it's really interesting to see. And
Is it all
honestly,
positive?
it's all,
Yeah,
so I have to say,
yeah.
out of all of it, I think everyone has had a positive experience, which I think is really good. Yeah, and I don't think anyone's gonna be like, "Oh my god, he shared the secret of the shorts." Like, you're gonna be
Right.
fine there. But like, it's really interesting because everyone does say they're very hands-on, but in like a helpful way, and never
Yeah.
like they've enjoyed the experience. I mean, uh,
Totally.
Andre Pishnichka, who's been on like 3 times, like we were talking to him about all his stuff with like the guru and everything. We're like, oh, where'd that come from? And he's like, oh, that was 100% like the creative team. Like, that was not me. And I was like, oh, wow. Like the whole like premise of your act. And like one of this major part was like completely
It
just like
totally
part of the
fit
show.
him perfectly
Yeah.
too, which is
Yeah.
funny.
And like that's what I think is interesting about it because they're willing to help, but they don't like try and necessarily steer you away from your natural kind of persona.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can echo that entirely. My experience is the same, and everyone that I know is the same. So, I mean, if you're a performer and you're thinking about doing the show, do it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a positive experience, and they care about the integrity of the magic as well as the good TV. And that's the only show I can think of
Yeah.
that you can check both those boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Penn and Teller would have a tough time like with the show themselves if they didn't stay true to that because I think they probably enjoy. They want to do something that they're enjoying as well. If it's all
Right.
just like scripted for viewership points, they wouldn't be sticking around for it.
No, but I mean, if you think about that initial pitch meeting, and they're like, okay, so we're gonna have magicians perform, and then we're gonna tell them exactly how they're doing it,
Yeah,
but do it in such a way that the integrity is still there for what they're creating. I would have never thought you could pull that off. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
Right.
But
Yeah.
speaking in code and all that, I remember the original version. Was it in Europe or where was that? Hosted by I'm drawing a blank. But before it came to the States, you know what I'm talking about? The original Fool Us?
taking a look right now. Let's see.
I didn't even know it was.
Is it real? Is this a Mandela effect?
It was in the UK. Usually things are in the UK first.
Fact check me.
I'm taking a look
Sometimes I-
right now. I'm
I
not finding
hallucinate.
anything now. Let's see.
If anybody knows in the chat, let us know.
Yeah, because if I do Fool Us, it's just coming up with Penn and Teller, and I'm curious if it was a foreign show, like what it would have originally been called.
It was Penn and Teller, but
Yeah.
Oh, what they had another show before.
Okay,
Was it what was that show? Wasn't ECAT on that show?
I don't even remember now.
I promise you.
No, there definitely was another Penn and Teller show before Fool Us.
It was with a male host.
Wasn't there? Is it? Who did that Master of Illusion show? What was that? No, that's not it. Master. What ECAT used to be on the show.
Okay, here I got it.
Wow.
This is Matthew Beach on it. So if you Google his performance,
Is it?
with Spread Wave, you'll see the original show.
Where did it take place?
Interesting.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I think I found like a trailer for it.
Look up, Matthew Beach, Spread Wave, Penn and Teller.
Was it just called Penn and Teller?
No, it was Fool Us.
Oh, interesting.
I'm a little let down that no one in the chat is backing me up on this.
Dude, you apparently know more than we do in people in the chat.
Come on, guys.
Oh,
Our show has failed.
now, Steve, keep that in your mouth. Don't say horrible things like that.
Oh, I'm just
But-
kidding.
But yeah, no. So it's interesting though that everyone who has gone on has had that positive experience, and I think it says a lot because you're right. That integrity is important and maintaining that. I'm sure a lot of people when they first heard the premise were like, "Oh man, this is going to be a disaster," or "How is this going to be another thing where they're revealing magic?" And to really maintain that integrity though, I think is amazing.
Yeah, and then to go on to as many seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many seasons have they had for this show?
They're on season 8 right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's intense, man.
Yeah.
Well, guys, again, last shout out for questions in the chat if anybody has any.
Reza, do you remember another show? It was before Fool Us, I think, or maybe during Fool Us, obviously. But there was another show about magicians that a bunch of magicians came on.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of Wizard Wars.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I knew it was
Completely
another
different
show.
premise with that one, though.
No, I know, but I was trying to remember what ECAT was on, and that was the show.
There you go.
Interesting. Dang, that's a long time though.
Nick says the other show they had was called Bullshit.
No,
Yeah, he
that's
thinks
different.
No,
That's a
Nick, the
different
show
show.
was bullshit.
Yeah, that wasn't Fool Us styled, but yeah.
Interesting. I don't remember that show.
Well, again, Reza, it's been an absolute honor having you on
Yes.
tonight. It's been a fun time chatting. I know you have some other plans this evening that we don't want to keep you from too long, but again, we really do appreciate you coming on tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Dude,
It was
we're
good. Good chatting with you.
Dude, no doubt. And we're excited to see where else you go. I mean, I listen, I think you're already absolutely crushing it. I think there's no question about that in anyone's mind. In 5 years, you're going to be a household name if you aren't already pretty much there at this point, which I think you're very damn close. So I'm excited to see how that growth kind of progresses over the short term here and to see what opportunities you get to tour. And hopefully as the pandemic slowly subsides, you get to finally go to Saudi Arabia and go to all the international places you really wanted to hit up, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think you're only as good as what you're doing in the moment right now with the accessibility of everything that we've got, phones and all the entertainment value of everything surrounding us. You can do something today, and a week from now, no one will care. So you got to continually be pushing the envelope. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. You can't run on anything you've done previously. You got to keep working.
Yeah. No,
Dude.
that's so true.
Absolutely true. And honestly, for anyone out there who's watching right now, make sure to follow Reza on all of his socials. They're down in the link in the description below. Also, we put up his website there as well, which has his show schedule. So if you happen to be in the Midwest or anywhere he's traveling, highly recommend you check out his shows. I have never been to Branson, but I may have to travel out there now just to check you out in your residence, man, and check it out. See how the show goes. I think that would be a fun time. So I'll drag Steve out from California. We'll go out there and have a good time.
Yes.
I'd love that, guys. Let's do it.
Dude,
Fun.
absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. Steve's going to tell you who next week's guest is because I, again, do not remember.
Next week's guest is Nicholas Lawrence.
Oh, nice, man. So
Yeah.
make sure to tune in this upcoming Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when we're going to be sitting down with Nicholas Lawrence to talk some more magic. Everyone out there, make sure to go follow Reza on Instagram. You can check out all his awesome posts and check out his website. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you this week.
Thank you very much, and peace.